if an executive team cares about making sure they understand the voice of their prospects and their customers, they need to show that by sponsoring someone to be the owner. It doesn't have to be their full-time job. It can be a part of their job, but they need to be measured on it, goaled on it. They need to have the resources to, even if it's just a few hours, like it needs to be explicit that the voice of the customer matters and there's someone who is going to own it and be accountable for bringing it to the rest of the organization. If you can't even do that, then it's very hard to say that you as a business leader are customer obsessed, or that you care about the customer, or you care about the voice of the customer. If you have an owner for product, you have an owner for customer success, you have an owner for sales, like if this matters to you, someone needs to at least be the point person, even if it's not their full-time job, but just something that they know they own and that the rest of the organization knows that they own.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where scaling a tech company takes more than code. It takes vision, grit, and the kind of leadership that turns chaos into compounding growth. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Who knows your customer best? Would it be your gut, your data, or the customers themselves? In this episode, we get into the real art and constant balancing act of building a SaaS company that lasts. It's about blending founder instinct with hard data, pairing gut feel with what your users are actually telling you, and figuring out how to keep that loop alive as your company grows. You'll hear why customers might not give you the perfect roadmap, but they'll absolutely point out the potholes. It's a sharp reminder that effective SaaS isn't built on assumptions. It's crafted from real conversations and patterns that you can't see in a spreadsheet alone. We also explore how large language models and smarter tooling are making it easier than ever to capture and interpret customer signals, turning scattered feedback into clear insights your entire team can act on. And if you've ever been tempted to obsess over product polish at the expense of distribution, and who hasn't, this episode is a needed gut check on why even the best solution fails without the right go-to-market strategy. Top it all off with a conversation about empowering teams through context, not micromanagement. And you've got a playbook for building a business where everyone can move faster, smarter, and always with the customer in mind. If you're in it for more than just the exit, this one's going to resonate. Grab your coffee and let's dig in. Our expert guest last Thursday was Mary Moore Simmons, VP of Engineering at Kibo, where she brings a decade of experience to the art of scaling teams and systems. On her episode, she shared about aligning teams on the ways of working, managing tech debt like revenue features, and creating a culture of feedback and how that transforms not just products, but people. Her approach proves that great engineering leadership is about as much of human management as it is about code. And our founder last week was Daniel Nausnick, founder of Hack Chinese, a platform that makes mastering Mandarin not only achievable, but engaging. Daniel built Hack Chinese after struggling with traditional methods himself and infused spaced repetition algorithms and seamless onboarding to keep learners motivated. In his episode, he revealed how narrowing in on the right demographic, improving activation, and staying deeply passionate were crucial to turning his personal pain point into a powerful SaaS business that now serves thousands. If you missed either of those episodes, go back and check them out. My guest today is Eli Portnoy. Eli is a serial entrepreneur with a sharp instinct for scaling technology ventures and building teams that deliver. As the founder and CEO of BackEngine AI, Eli is pioneering how AI can elevate customer retention and lifetime value by deeply analyzing interaction data. Before BackEngine, he launched and led Sense360, a consumer insights platform adopted by top restaurant chains, which was acquired by Medallia for $44 million. His entrepreneurial journey started with ThinkNear, where he introduced situational targeting for mobile advertising, leading to a $22.5 million acquisition by Telenav in under 2 years. Eli's resume also includes shaping digital video and connected devices as senior product manager at Amazon, plus, of course, sharing his hard won lessons as an executive fellow at Harvard Business School. Whether writing for Forbes, TechCrunch, or advising on startup sales teams, Eli's passion lies in fusing data, leadership, and customer obsession to build lasting companies. Welcome, Eli Portnoy. Hey, Eli, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thank you so much for having me.
You scaled and sold a few companies before. What inspired you to build BackEngine now? What kind of gap did you see in the market?
It's more than even a market gap. It's a pain point that I personally have felt multiple times, which is when you're running a B2B business and you're a founder or CEO, you head up product, CS, whatever function you're a part of, it's very hard to get a good understanding of what customers are saying or what prospects are saying. And I felt this at my two companies. Like when we were a tiny little team and it was just me and a couple of other people, I was on every customer call. I was on every email. I sold them. I was the CSM. I was everything. And so I knew exactly what they needed, what they wanted, what we needed to go do as a business to make sure that we delivered exceptional results. But then as soon as we started to grow, we started to bring on people on the team to help us manage all that growth. And that meant that I started to get more and more disconnected from those customers and those prospects. And I didn't have a great sense of what was going on. And no matter how much I tried, I could not get back to that superpower I had when we were young and early. And I was on every conversation. And that's what we're trying to solve with BackEngine, keeping everyone really close to the customer, making sure that customer voice permeates throughout the entire organization and every decision.
That's awesome. It's so important. And I think it's really hard to do. Customer feedback it's a fairly crowded space. There's some other people out there. What is it that makes BackEngine's approach stand out? And specifically like automating and interpreting the feedback?
Most of the tools that exist to help understand customer feedback are survey-based tools. So
yes.
The way a company would traditionally go get feedback is they'd launch an NPS survey, they'd launch a CSAT survey, and those would go out to their customer base, and some people would fill it out and maybe give some details. And once a quarter, this would happen, and the people at the company would review it and put together a little presentation. I think that works in a world where you have a very large customer base, like if you are McDonald's or if you are Target, if you're a B2C business. It does not work in a B2B business because here's how it breaks down. If you're a B2B business, you probably have, if you're small, you have 50, 100 customers. If you're very large, you might have a couple of thousand customers. And you send out that survey. Those surveys tend to have a very low response rate. If you're lucky, you're going to get 5% people to respond, right? So if you have, let's say you're a big company, you have 1,000 customers, it means you're going to get 50 responses a quarter. And each of those responses is going to be pretty limited. Like how much information are people actually going to tell you in a survey? Now compare and contrast that to the amount of information that is naturally flowing in your organization. If you're a B2B business, you probably have a CSM that's talking to that customer at least monthly. Yep. You've got product teams that are talking to them. They're filling out support tickets. You're doing QBRs with them where you're actually getting in front of their executives and you're having like full conversations. Throughout all of those interactions, there is a lot of feedback that they're sharing. They're telling you if they're happy, if they're not happy, if you're meeting expectations or not, if the product is working, what features they want, what bugs are there. They're telling you about how they're describing the product and how they think about it and why they bought it and what competitors they're seeing in the market. They're telling you so much. So our hypothesis is rather than trying to think of customer feedback as this like very stagnant survey that you go out and you do once a quarter, what really we're doing is we're using large language models to collect all of the things that customers are saying organically across all the channels that they're talking to you and organizing it so that you can understand across customers and for every individual customer what's working, what's not working, what they care about, what they like, and helping every team across the company get access to that data and be able to activate it and use it.
That is pretty powerful for sure.
Thanks. It's been fun to build. It's been cool.
I'm sure. And let's say like a demo or a pitch, what does that look like in explaining it to a potential customer or investor?
Yeah. So the pitch is pretty easy, right? It's you talk to your customers. Yes. What teams are you using to talk to those customers? Okay. how often do you think you're interacting with each of those customers? And it's always, once they get into it, they're like, wow, we really talk to these customers a lot. We have a sales team, a
Yeah.
CSM team, an AM team. Like, great. Okay. How much do you know about one individual customer? Let's just pick one individual customer. Like I go into the CRM and I see a little note from the last call. Okay. And how much do you know about across the board customers? And they're like, well, a lot. We know our customers really well. I'm like, great. What's the number one feature they're asking about? And they always have some answer. And I'm like, okay, great. Tell me how many customers have actually said this. Which customers? And that's
Yeah.
when you start to realize that they're really dealing in anecdotes, not data. And they can't really
Correct.
answer that question. And so then I'm like, let me show you what this looks like in BackEngine. And I open up BackEngine, and in BackEngine, you have basically organized data about every component of your customer journey. I can show you for any individual customer why they bought, what they think of the product, what issues they've had, what feedback they've given you, where expectations aren't being met, which people at that organization have talked to the customer. And I'm like, do you have this data currently? And they're like, no, we really don't. I'm like, now level it up. Let me show you what this looks like when you have all of your customers providing this data. And let me show you a report that says, what are the top 3 things customers are saying? What are the themes that are coming up? How to, like, a SWOT analysis in the words of the customer. What product features do they want? How many people exactly are asking for each of those features? And what have they said? And what are they trying to solve? And you just go down and you're like, there is a treasure trove in every single company
Yeah.
of customer data, and almost no business has been able to actually like bring it all together. And that's what we do for them.
That's what CRMs were supposed to do. And they don't at all because people don't put the stuff in there.
Yeah. And it's hard to tell a team that's already very strapped to
Right.
after every call and after every email to put in all the information and all the context. And then even if they do put it in, the CRMs don't do a very good job of surfacing what's in there unless you're going to go read tons of notes. And so those are the 2 foundational problems. They require people to put in the information, and then they require people to read through all of the information. And our assertion is, 1, you really don't need people to add those things in because you now have LLM, so you can make sure everything gets in there. And you don't need to review everything piece by piece. You can actually extract the insights through LLMs. And so that's really how we're thinking about this product.
I think that's so critical. And it's definitely the right time for a product like that. That's ultimately what we need, is to be able to give real answers to what is it that our customers want and need. And then we always want to put revenue behind that and understand, if we deliver this feature, what is it worth? And today, probably at best, it's a guess. And at worst, it's fantasy. And just, here's a feature and I'm going to put these numbers to it because I want it. And so send it over to dev and we're going to justify it, not the other way around, where we're really looking at the data and building things that people want.
Yeah. I can tell you 2 stories that I experienced that I think are indicative of this problem. The first is, at my Sense360, I wanted to do a repositioning exercise. I felt like the way we were talking about the product wasn't matching what our product actually did and how our customers thought of the pain point. And so I hired a positioning expert who came into our office, and we did a 2-day workshop. And during that 2-day workshop, we all had to talk about what our product did and how our customers thought of the product. And every single person at the table had a different perspective on how customers thought about our product. And that was really frustrating to me, because this isn't an interpretation. There is actual truth. We just have no visibility to that truth. And none of us have enough exposure to the customers because we're only on a selective few pieces of the conversations that are happening. And I was like, it was just a really hard exercise to go through because none of us had that visibility. So that was number 1. The other story is, once we were acquired, the CEO of the acquiring company happened to be on a call with a customer. And that customer said, what would be awesome is if Sense360 had this feature. And the CEO called me up and said, hey, by the way, customers are asking for this feature. You need to go build it and you need to prioritize it. I was like, I have never heard anyone ask for that feature. There are probably 90 things that we need to build out before. And we had this conversation, but I had no data. And so It was just me telling him something versus the bias that he had from hearing it directly from a customer. And he was like, no, like I'm hearing this from customers too. And they're telling you need this. And no matter what we did on this, we went back to the CS team and said, can you tell me how many times you've heard this? But there was just no way to go collect the data. At the end of the day, we built out the feature and no one ever used it. And it's easy for me to pick on the CEO and say, oh, he didn't know what was going on, but I actually did. But I didn't actually know either because I also didn't have data. And I was just saying I didn't think that, and no one on the team had. And to me, that's the fundamental gap is like, we're just all guessing.
Yeah, it's so important to have that data. I think just that visibility, and it's up to this point, I think it's been difficult to find that in one place. And then even if it is in one place, to be able to dig through it and look at the data, not only just for a single customer or an account, but across the entire base. What is it that they're saying? What's the sentiment? How are they viewing it? What's important to them? What big initiatives are coming? So I think that it's really valuable data to have there.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny. I think I also have the opportunity to invest in a few startups myself, and I get to see it from the other side. And whenever I ask the investments, like, how are your customers doing? Everyone says they love it. They love our product. Everyone says that, which makes sense. Right. I say it too. But it's actually dangerous to not actually know. If you can figure out what they don't like and you can improve it and you can make it better. And if you're just like blindly saying like they love it, it's not very helpful. And so one of the things that we also do is we provide you a sentiment score to understand how are people feeling about you as a business, break it out by customer, but then also break it out by component. How do they feel about your pricing? How do they feel about your product? How do they feel about your service? How do they feel about your support? And again, it's all coming from the same source of data. But once you have an understanding of your baseline and each component that makes up that baseline, and you can monitor and trend it over time, you just as a business become so much more powerful as in just your decision making and your ability to triage and do stuff and improve and grow. And sometimes it feels like in B2B, because this is not as true in B2C, but in B2B, we're all just running blind. We really are.
Yeah. You've built a couple of businesses, ThinkNear, exited in 19 months. Sense360, you talked about a minute ago, that was acquired. How has your approach to building changed across ventures?
My first one, I had no idea what I was doing. I was really just clueless. And we got so lucky. We got so lucky in two ways. One is I lucked into a great team because I knew nothing about recruiting, hiring, managing, and just had some amazing people on the team. And we had incredible tailwinds. Just by serendipity, we picked the right market, the right time, and it didn't matter what we did. We were going to be successful because we just happened to be in the right time at the right spot. And so my approach there was, I'm awesome. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I went into my second business with a lot of hubris. And I thought to myself, like, I'm just going to go do this again in 18 or 19 months. And the turns out with serendipity, just because you had serendipity one time doesn't mean you're going to have it the second time. And I did not hit the timing or the market anywhere near the same level of precision as I did the first time. And we had to really grind it out. This was a hard business to build out. And every single mistake that I made the first time that was basically washed away or covered over because of the tailwinds was exposed. And I started to realize all of the things that I didn't do well as a manager and all of the things that I didn't do well as a leader and all of the ways that I still had growth and improvement and opportunity. And over the 6 years that it took to build and exit that business, I had to get better and improve. And so that was a big difference. And this time around, I'm still making all sorts of mistakes. It's impossible not to. But I do feel like they're the easy mistakes to avoid, I'm avoiding. And so that's been a difference. I'd say the other big difference is my first two ventures, I was very excited to build something that someone else would buy. To me, the ideal outcome was that we would build a business and someone would purchase the business and I would go do the next thing. This time around, my approach and my perspective is very different. It's the fun part of starting something and building something is the journey. It's not the outcome. I've been through the outcome twice. I know what that feels like. It's great, but it's nowhere near as great as the journey. And so I am leaning into the journey. I am really trying to build a team that I want to spend all of my time with, and a business and solving a problem that I really care about, and trying to make this thing something that isn't just about being acquired, but is a standalone, amazing business that lasts the test of time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When it comes to product market fit, how do you balance founder instinct versus data in early days?
Yeah. So I don't know that they're mutually exclusive. Like, to me, I have a saying that I say, the customer isn't always right, but they're always insightful. And
It's
what I
good.
mean by what I mean by that is, you can't just blindly follow the data. In this case, customer data, but it applies to data in general. Like, you have to collect the data and then apply your intuition to the data, your analysis, and I think you can't do one without the other. If you're a founder and you're not collecting the data and you're just basing on your intuition, there's no way that's going to work. You're literally just going to end up building something that no one cares about. And if all you do is spend your time gathering data, but you have no intuition for how to take that data and turn it into a set of concrete steps, then you're just going to paralyze yourself in Excel spreadsheets. And so the great founders collect the data and then use their intuition to understand what that data means and what they should do about it. And so I just don't think you can be successful with one or the other. You need both.
Such a great answer. I think you're right. It does take both, because the data alone doesn't tell the full story. And it's really having the understanding of the industry and the business and where you're headed and how the data fits into that narrative.
Yeah, I think so. I very much think so. And I think that's part of the fun of it. Is how do you gather data in the early days? Because a lot of times I think executives think of data as like, usage data and market data. And a lot of times you can't have that data when you're early. When you haven't even built out the product, you're not going to have usage data. But there's still data. You talk to customers, you go and research stuff, you read books on it. There's always data. And I think the most dangerous way to come up with an idea is to have a lightning bolt moment in the shower because that's just devoid of reality. Like, the best, at least in B2B, the best way to come up with an idea is to just start somewhere and just start talking to people and putting something out there and gathering data, and then use the intuition as a founder to figure out what that means and where to take it and how to go. And I think that's every one of my businesses has followed that basic path.
I think a lot of businesses do actually start that way, of the lightning bolt moment, and a company is launched, and then maybe they do get some data. How do we, whether it's that situation or not, and we get the data, how do we avoid confirmation bias in the data? So we've got a great idea and we go out there and we find the data that supports our great idea.
Hard. It's really hard. I like to start from the position of I don't know. And if you start with the position of I don't know, and I'm very happy to be wrong, I think there are two types of people in this world. There's the type of person who wants to be right. What matters to them is that their opinion, their idea, their initiative is right. And so they go and they spend all of their time trying to convince everyone around them that they are right, and trying to move the world to match their perspective so that they can be right. And then I think there's another type of person who all they care about is getting to the right answer. It doesn't matter where that right answer comes from. They just want to get to the right answer. And I think there are some examples of the former who've built great businesses where, they had a vision for the world, and they were able to bring the entire rest of the world along the ride and get to them. I don't have that level I can't do that. So I am recognizing that I can't do that. I am very much in the second camp of trying to really figure out what is the right answer, which means that I approach everything through the perspective of I don't know, and I'm going to find it. And there's no confirmation bias because I don't have a bias. My bias is to find the right answer. So when I talk to a customer, I'm not trying to confirm the feature I want to go build. I'm trying to figure out what is the thing that they're trying to solve and how can I help them solve it, and then use that as and it requires a level of flexibility, because oftentimes I do find that I'm wrong very often, and I have to shift and change. And sometimes I drive the team crazy because I'm constantly shifting. But I think it's that process of constantly iterating your way to something that's at least worked for me, and is, I think, a much more repeatable model for others.
Yeah, really good. One of the things we talked about early on, not having the data, and then once we start scaling up, one of the things you talked about was the danger of losing the customer connection as you scale. Maybe what systems or rituals have helped you stay close to customers as business scales up?
One is BackEngine. So we are big users of our own product, which is systematically collecting everything customers say and surfacing it to me. So that's been very helpful. I think the other things that I very much recommend, I do and I recommend everyone does, and two things. One is every CEO founder should make sure that they're talking to a customer at least once a week. That is a hard requirement that I have on myself, and I highly recommend everyone else does, because no matter how big you grow, if you can just find 30 minutes to an hour every week and just talk to a customer, you will at least have a connection that will be valuable and will help shape how you see the world. Second thing, yeah, and it's amazing how few CEOs actually do that, which is really troubling. The second thing that I would say is to make sure there's an owner for customer feedback in an organization. All too many B2B businesses, no one owns it. Sometimes CS is like the de facto owner where they're like, you talk to the customer the most, so you will be the point person, but that's not ownership. If an executive team cares about making sure they understand the voice of their prospects and their customers, they need to show that by sponsoring someone to be the owner. It doesn't have to be their full-time job. It can be a part of their job, but they need to be measured on it, goaled on it. They need to have the resources to, even if it's just a few hours, like it needs to be explicit that the voice of the customer matters and there's someone who is going to own it and be accountable for bringing it to the rest of the organization. If you can't even do that, then it's very hard to say that you as a business leader are customer obsessed, or that you care about the customer, or you care about the voice of the customer. If you have an owner for product, you have an owner for customer success, you have an owner for sales. If this matters to you, someone needs to at least be the point person, even if it's not their full-time job, but just something that they know they own and that the rest of the organization knows that they own.
I like that. That's a really good way to approach it.
It's worked for me.
Yeah, yeah. What if a leadership book and a Netflix drama had a baby? That is The Captain's Keys, Storms, Emotional Wreckage, and a surprisingly practical leadership system that one CEO called the owner's manual and never got for 20 years of leadership. Here is the brutal truth. You're probably drowning in LinkedIn connections while starving for real relationships. I hear it all the time. Most leaders are exhausted from playing the lone hero, and it's killing both your results and your sanity. The Captain's Keys reveals a new leadership framework, the stability matrix, 4 specific relationships that prevent burnout while multiplying your impact. And this isn't just theory. It's a system that I've used to scale companies and taught over 1,000 executive leaders. So grab your copy today at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or choose your own adventure. Print, ebook, or audio. Stop drowning alone and build your stability matrix. Earlier, you talked about some of the mistakes, and so avoiding the same mistakes or maybe the easy mistakes. What are some of those, maybe a mistake from a previous venture that you proactively avoided at BackEngine?
Yeah, there are so many. There's hundreds and hundreds of different little mistakes and big mistakes that are easy. So I'll talk about a couple of them. So one is spending too much time on things that don't matter. General framework is if it doesn't matter and it's easily reversible, just make the decision quickly. Don't spend a lot of time on it. There's too many things to do. If the decision is really important and really hard to reverse, then spend a lot of time on it. But all too often, like it's easy as a first-time founder to just spend a lot of time on the logo, to spend a lot of time on the office. There's just a lot of stuff that aren't going to matter. They're not going to make a difference to whether you're successful or not. Right. And just make those as fast as humanly possible. I think the other is around team building. It's so attractive to give people inflated titles because it's cheap, it's free. You're a tiny little company and you're trying to hire above your weight class, and they're asking for stuff and you don't have enough money and you're like, you know what, I'll just give you the VP title. And it works. People will join, but you will create so many issues for yourself down the line. It will be so much more painful. So stuff like that is just little mistakes. Make sure you have a good lawyer. Make sure you have the right advisors. Make sure you put the stuff in place from day one. Like you have an actual process for your bookkeeping and you've got like tight financials and all that stuff. It's just easy if you do it. And if you do it from the beginning, and if you don't, then it becomes a real problem. It becomes really hard.
That's really helpful. Talk to us about team. What have you learned about building and leading high performance teams across multiple companies?
So the number one thing for me is making sure that you are giving people enough context. I think a lot of first time founders make the mistake where they know everything that's going on and they have it all in their head, and they become the bottleneck where they keep information close to the vest, and then they hire a marketing person and they give them the information that the marketing person needs to know, and expect the marketing person, to then be able to go and build an entire marketing plan that aligns with the broader like vision for the company. And then they go to the CS leader and they give them the bits of information that they need, and expect them to then be able to make all sorts of great decisions on behalf of the company, and so on and so forth. And what I found is that's a really hard way to build a business, because basically every major decision has to come through you.
Right.
The better way to build a business is give everyone context, create the vision, create the systems so that everyone understands where you're trying to go. Make sure that all information is flowing across the organization so that the CSM leader has the same information about for that the product leader does, that the sales leader does. Everyone understands the constraints that you're under. Everyone, and that way, when the CS leader has to make a decision, they don't have to come back to you. They already know the context and where you're trying to go, and they can make the decision on their own. And the CS, and I don't know, the product manager can do the same thing, and everyone in the organization can just move quickly without bottlenecks. And that means that you have to spend a lot of time building collateral like materials, talking to people, giving people context, sharing information freely, having processes so that information is flowing. But I have found that if you can do that and everyone has all the information, they will make better decisions and you will move faster. And I'll share one quick story, which is at some point in the Sense360 days, we were having just a really hard time, and we weren't growing quite fast enough, and we were running out of money, and it wasn't clear to me when I was going to be able to raise more money. And I felt this incredible amount of pressure. And I started going to the team and basically saying, we have to be so careful with money. We have to be so careful with money. Let's cut here. Let's cut there. But I didn't give them the context of like how much runway we had and what the funding environment looked like. And so not only did I create fear, but they started to come up with all these ideas for cost cutting that were absolutely not the right decisions.
Wow.
At some point, someone pulled me aside and said, I don't think anyone understands what you're trying to do here. So I grabbed everyone and I brought them together and I said, guys, let me show you the financials. This is how much money we have left. This is how fast we're growing. This is the bar that I'm hearing we have to cross from VCs in order to raise our next round. We might get there, but it's very close. And everyone rallied around it. They weren't scared, which was I was like trying to protect them. But what they did was like, okay, we get it now. Here's 3 suggestions that aren't going to inhibit growth and are going to help us cut some money, and we can get there. But we couldn't give you this before because we didn't understand what you were even trying to do. Were you trying to save money long term? Were you trying to improve margins? Like, we didn't get it. And then everyone came up with stuff, and we were able to go and make it work and get past that hard period and make it to the next round and do all the things we needed to do. Yeah, I think the biggest thing around high performance teams is just make sure they have the right context.
Why is that so hard for leaders to really build the teams and then give them the decision-making power to do that?
Most of the time it comes from insecurity. We're worried that if they see something that they don't like, they'll get scared, they'll get spooked, they'll leave. Oftentimes we have a hard time giving up control. I think a lot of CEOs have a tendency to want control. And in the early days, you're 2 founders and that's it. And the founder, like the CEO, is doing all the business stuff and making all the pricing decisions and making all the product, all the stuff. And then all of a sudden we have to start giving up that, and that's hard too. And so I think between insecurity and control, I think people have a hard time making sure that everyone has all the context and sharing all of that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thinking about the product, just maybe some of the questions that I had when we were talking about it before, just the customer feedback and the CEO example that you were talking about, hearing from the squeaky wheel customer. I think it's really easy to get caught in chasing that squeaky wheel, or the ones that are loud, or you send the surveys out and the 5% that respond, are loud about something. How do we filter out the signal from the noise, especially when it comes to product decisions?
Yeah, I think trying to identify the root cause of what the pain is and what they're trying to solve for. is really helpful. I think a lot of times customers come with ideas for products and features, and most of the time they don't have enough context about how the product works and also where you're trying to go and what other customers want. And so trying to separate the pain from the solution and really listening to customers around the pain rather than the solution is the best product advice I've ever gotten. So I think a lot about that famous Henry Ford quote, which is, if I had asked customers, they would have told me they want a faster horse. And most of the time people say it from the perspective of, don't ask customers, don't know what they want. And I actually disagree. I actually think that quote is super eliminating. Customers knew what they wanted, to go faster. That's the pain point. The
Yeah.
solution they proposed is wrong. A faster horse, that's not what the right way to solve it. But if you understand that their problem is they want to get there faster because they're going too slow, then you can come up with the right solution, which is an automobile. And I think that that's true of most customer feedback, is they're not always right, but they're always insightful. So find what they're saying, understand what they're saying, where it's coming from, what they're trying to solve, and then use the context that you have to help solve it for them in the best way possible.
It's really good. I love that because you're really identifying the problem. And I think you're right. A lot of times they come and they say, hey, I want this feature, I want this thing. And if we just say yes or okay, or give it to a business analyst and say, hey, build this feature out, we miss so much context because it's not about the feature. It's not about the horse or the car or anything else. What do they really want? They want to go faster. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we can open up some discussion and have some conversations about, what does that look like? What are the options? How fast? Where do they want to go? Why? And really build something that is a great solution, not just for that one, but really that delivers the solution for the problem.
I definitely think so.
Yeah, that was really good. What's something about the feedback loop that's maybe wildly misunderstood in SaaS, especially as teams start to grow?
I would argue that most teams don't have a feedback loop, and they think they do, and they think they understand, but they really don't. Like, it's shocking to me how the what's the right word? Like, the disconnect between how confident executives are that they understand their customer and how little process and infrastructure and data they actually have for feeling that way. And yeah, that's by far the most. The other thing I would say is just how many teams crave that customer voice. Because when we started the company, we thought executives would care a lot about it and maybe product, but it turns out that almost every team cares. The CRO cares about it. The sales team cares about it. The marketing team cares about it. The implementation team cares about it. The operations team, everyone is ultimately, like, the only reason businesses exist is to serve their customers. And so it's natural that every team would function around creating value for that customer. And so they all care about that customer voice.
That's really good. Well, how should maybe SaaS founders rethink feedback collection in a world of AI? Commoditized software, ever increasing customer expectations, and AI touches every piece of that. How should we rethink feedback collection and then action on that feedback?
In a pretty material way. So we talked at the beginning about CRMs, and the thing with CRMs is it's so manual. And the reason it's manual is because there's so many customer conversations, and how are you going to go, like, you have to spend a huge amount of company resources and time to take all of that and put it into a CRM. LLMs, you have an infinite army of the things that can go and do an incredible job of synthesizing the written language. Like, there are a lot of things that they're not good at, but LLMs are incredibly good at going over text and understanding what was said. And so the idea that you would have anyone go write down notes after a call and put it into CRM or put something in Slack, like, it's just very antiquated in an age where you have LLMs. There are a lot of things LLMs can't do and a lot of things that humans can do. But this isn't one of them.
You've worked at Amazon, built this, your third startup now, 2 exits. What's something that big companies understand that founders or small companies often miss, and maybe vice versa as well?
And hard to fully generalize because this is not true for everyone, but I think big companies understand that especially in B2B, a lot of times success is defined by the strength of your distribution channels. Whereas I think early stage companies think that the strength is defined by their success is defined by the strength of their product. And
100%.
And I just think that too little time is spent thinking about distribution at the early stage, and probably too little time is spent thinking about the product at the later stage. And obviously you need both, but distribution is, I think, under talked about and thought about at the earliest stages, and it really matters. Really matters.
It does. Yeah, a inferior product with great distribution will beat a superior product that nobody knows about, always. And we see it. A lot of the big companies out there, they are where they are because they nailed distribution and their products are just mediocre.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
All the time. But
I've seen a lot of startups, great products, but nobody knows about them.
And even if they know about it, if you have an amazing sales organization who can identify problems and who can really help buyers buy, it's actually, I don't think we have enough empathy for how hard it is to buy software, and how like people are putting their jobs on the line when they make a selection, and how scary that is, and how many people they have to convince internally and champion. And there's just a lot that goes into it. And even if everyone knows about you and you have a great product, if you can't help them go through that process, you're not going to be able to sell it. And if someone else, even if they have an inferior product, but they can help go through that motion, they're going to win. So there's just so many different places where if you don't understand distribution, it becomes really hard to win, even if you have the best product. And unfortunately, too many founders are very product driven, which is good because you want a good product. But I like to see founding teams where you have a technical co-founder, a product co-founder, and a revenue co-founder. And I think all too often because all too often, like the YC thing is you want a business guy and a technical. And I'm like, no, we're underselling how important revenue is and how important it is to just make that part of the core fabric of the founding team.
Yeah. I think it's a really general term as well. Business guy, a technical guy. What does that mean? Because they're both really broad. And I think it matters in really having the right expertise in the right places.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think usually when people say technical and product, they mean like a CTO and a CEO who's very product driven.
Yeah, they're really missing something there if that's the team.
I think so.
Yeah. Yep. Revenue generation, distribution matters.
Big time.
A whole lot more than a lot of founders think.
I think so,
as AI becomes embedded in just about every tool, and we see it all over the place today, so what do you think will define the winners and the also-rans, or the things that kind of fade away over the next generation of SaaS?
Ooh, that is a good question. That is also a really hard question for me to answer.
It is.
At the highest level, I think back to the last few years and what made a successful SaaS product, and it was how deeply integrated or how strong of a point of view did it have to the core user that was going to use it. So that's why I think vertical SaaS did so well. It was like you would build a SaaS, a CRM specifically for plumbers, and you would build whatever other tool specifically for like tiny little persona. And the deeper you could get there, you'd win, and you'd get the benefits of having a tight ICP in a tight market and being able to talk to them from a messaging standpoint and be at all the conferences that they went to, but also making the product really speak to them. And I think a lot of that is not so relevant now because it's just so easy to build features and build code. And so I don't know. I have a real question about whether we're going to see. I hear a lot of people talking about in the age of AI, we're just going to have so many more products. Every category is going to have even more and more competitors. I actually think we're going to get to a place of more consolidation where the platforms are just going to be able to build out all the features and all the functionality and all the like nuanced product decisions that are super catered to very niche specific audiences. And like the idea that you're going to have 7 of the same tool for 7 parts of the category, I think goes away. And you have a couple of like really big players who've been able to then build out for all of the potential like smaller niche ICPs. I don't know. It's fascinating time. I'm so curious to see how it all plays out. And obviously,
it really
hypothesizing. Yeah.
Where can we learn more about you and about BackEngine online?
BackEngine.ai is probably the best place. You can follow me on LinkedIn. That's linkedin.com/Eli Portnoy. And people are more than welcome to email me at eli@backengine.ai.
Awesome. Eli, it's been such a great conversation. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Thanks again, Eli, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Eli and BackEngine at backengine.io. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our channel on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We've got full video episodes, training, shorts, outtakes, lots more stuff over there for you on YouTube. Thought leaders share. I bet you're one. Share this episode with a founder who's in the messy middle. It won't clean it up, but it will make the next move clearer. Everyone who shares this week gets a cheese board made entirely of validation, compliments, and mild cheddar. Pairs nicely with metrics and wine. What if burnout wasn't just a business problem, but a personal turning point for growth? Scott Anderson, the author of You're Not Toast and founder of Double Dare, where he helps high achieving professionals break free from burnout and rebuild work passion. His burnout breakthrough method helps leaders uncover their true values, process mental blocks, and create a quick, lasting recovery, moving beyond temporary fixes towards sustainable, fulfilling success. That's next. And then after that, we have Nick Froelich, the founder and CEO of Saratasa, technology solutions company he launched in 2005 to bridge the daunting gap between cutting edge tech and everyday business needs. Amazing. His mission is simple yet powerful: make technology accessible so businesses can evolve without fear and thrive. I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.